Vanquish Soul is quite a peculiar deck in that it hasn't exactly completely cemented itself in a standardized deck list of sorts. But over the course of the last couple of months, it's sort of developing with the Kashtira engine working out quite nicely. And the reason for that is because of the attribute manipulation of the deck with the reveals based on primarily fire, dark, and earth. It's actually really important to have something like a Fenrir who can get you those different attributes to be able to fulfill the conditions of things like your most important monster in the deck, Ryzen. Raisin? How would you say it?
Yeah, Raisin, I guess. Raisin. I'm not an expert by any means. And as we can see here, actually, the deck, as we will be able to showcase, relies on different attributes, and that is why the Kashtira cards are actually quite good in the deck. And usually you would see 3 Fenrirs because one of the attributes required is Earth, but in this case he's actually playing a small package, which is an interesting addition. Alongside it, he's also using some Equip Cell in the Infernobles package, in this case the Durandal, which is an interesting addition to get to that Raisin, which is the core card of the deck.
Yeah, it's really good because of the just generic warrior support that the Infernoble archetype has offered over the last few years, and that it allows you to just get your generic fire warrior monsters. And of course, yeah, that is the most important heart and soul of the deck that you want to go into. Now we're going to see the Link 1 here. Link 1 archetype-based cards generally tend to be very powerful. And of course, this one is no different. Rock of the Vanquisher. This one allows you to either special from your hand or retrieve from the graveyard to get back the Raisin again. So you can see here we're going to go for Dr. Madlove here. I believe that's the searcher of the deck.
Yeah, I mean, Raisin searches monster, Madlove spell and traps. So what you can do is you can search a pseudo book of moon or eclipse-like effect in the quick spell, or a reborn-like effect in the other. Usually those are one-offs. In this case, I think he goes for the Dust Devil, which is the Book of Moon, which allows you to set monsters depending on the number of different Vanquish Soul you control. So, as you can see here, it's important to notice, as you mentioned, that although the Link 1 obviously refers to the archetype, it is not a Vanquish Soul monster by itself. So,
yep, that's the naming colloquial there is relevant in that it doesn't benefit from some of the spells and traps, but regardless, it will allow you to special summon it into one of the columns, because the relevant effect there of Raisin is the ability to destroy a monster that your opponent controls in the same column as itself.
In the same column, Obviously, Mech Knights are one of the first archetypes that really made people pay attention to the columns, but now Vanquish Souls can do the same with both Raisin and the Pantheon. But nice, Book of Eclipse from Federico.
So Book of Eclipse here does... Ash.
Ash to negate it. So, as you can see, the Vanquish Soul deck is not like a blowout kind of deck where you set up a field that is unbreakable. It's instead more of a grind deck. And I think it's definitely plays up for more interactions.
Yeah, the cool thing about this deck is it does play very much in a control style. Wouldn't even really call it mid-range because it is fairly slow, but yeah, as you mentioned, you're about generating advantage, harboring those resources to be able to you know, outgrind your opponent and slowly pick apart their field with the Raisin.
We could say maybe, I guess, kind of reminding of Salamangreat, of those kind of strategies before, you know, access code really allowed them to OTK easily. It was kind of how the deck played out. And here we see potentially another Book of Eclipse off the top, and even a standard copy.
Yeah, we can. We've got a whole bunch of options here. We can either go for Engine, and it does look like that's what Federico is going to go for. The Robina, most important card in the Floowandereeze strategy to get those +3s going off quite nicely. And does not opt to go for a second Eclipse to try and deal with this field here. Of course, Book of Eclipse only allows you to set just regular monsters, not Link monsters, and so the Rock is indeed still online here. Looks like we're going to resolve it now to return the Raisin back to our hands.
Absolutely. As you can see, Federico is maining RP Featherstorm, something that you will usually decide. But actually, before the match, he told me he's only maining one copy and siding the rest, to actually mock me a little bit for my deck list that I won the Euros with just one-dimensional barrier. He said, it worked out for you, might as well try it the same for me. And honestly, can work out.
I don't know if you've seen the fad recently of people playing just a single copy of Talents in their deck list. You know, if you see it, you see it.
Absolutely. I mean, but when you play cards like Free Duality and Free Prosperity, obviously those one-off make slightly more sense, I would say.
So yeah, Floowander can sometimes be a little bit of a struggle with consistency sometimes, as there is not a lot of great links between engine and non-engine in the deck, but Federico here has plenty of access to that with the Rubina in the hand and now picking up a map as well.
Absolutely. Here, what we are gonna go for is instead bouncing back the Borger to the end to special summon the Caesar, which potentially allows you to reveal free, as it's doing, to destroy any card, and the map is now gone. So it's not always that you can open up with the Caesar setup, and this is great stuff from the UK player.
Yeah, so this is why the attribute manipulation in this deck is so important, because the ability to have a bunch of different attributes in your hand, collected by things like Fenrir, or backed up with hand traps that all have varied different types of attributes, like the Ash Blossom being fire, the Ghost Bell in his deck being earth, really works out quite nicely and synergizes really well with the Vanquish Soul strategy.
Yeah, I think the deck is built up very well, honestly, with a lot of hand traps as well, and it's filled with a lot of consistency. So it's
and
not
here
a surprise.
We see the first tribute summon thanks to the unexplored winds. Usually it's a one-off. Federico is actually playing 3 copies of the card between the main deck and side deck. He feels like that's one of the best cards, especially going second, and we can see why here. The effect to tribute cards from your opponent's side of the field is not once per turn, which really allows you to disrupt them when going second, and this is the case.
It's really hard to retrieve that single limited copy of Kashtira Riseheart once it's gone, so being able to, as Federico is playing here, as you mentioned, the 3 copies, I think just trying to go for an easy out and removing that boss monster is kind of, I see how he's decided to adapt versus the meta. Is that a second field spell?
Yep.
No, okay.
I think he searched it with the Ampen instead.
Okay, right,
yeah.
I see,
So
I see.
now-
Alright, not bad here.
No, really.
Second
really
normal
solid
summon is
opening.
going to be very, very powerful.
I mean, both are, especially now that there is no more statue for the deck, really kind of like grind decks. I mean, this is going to be a grind match for sure. And here we can see a nice interaction by revealing the Toucan. He's going to be able to banish the Ampen from the deck, and so he has access to a second Ampen, again getting rid of a card, potentially the Caesar. And here we are going to see the Dust Devil just to put face down a card from Federico. Yep. What this does is that the Floowandereeze to be banished needs to be face up. So if you were to tribute, it will go instead to the graveyard, as you can see. And now, yeah, it's just gonna get rid of the Caesar to normal summon the Ampen. And this is really well played by Federico.
Unexplored Winds not being once per turn to tribute your opponent's monsters. Neither is the effect of the Empen to search here, so field spell into the trap cards, the Dreaming Town. And further normal summons being performed here with Eglin being able to retrieve out some disruption potentially for the follow-up turn here
this
into
is
Avion.
Potentially even just the game. I think did he start with Prosperity in this game?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay, so not quite because of that only, otherwise this would have been 8100. So great stuff from Federico, which is now going to move to the battle phase, and as mentioned, is going to deal 4050 life point damage to his opponent.
You say it's a bit of a harder matchup considering how a lot of the disruption in the Vanquish Soul deck is based around setting monsters, destroying cards, and Floowander doesn't really care about that, right? As long as the effects resolve, then you're pretty happy, right?
Yeah, but especially because like I think it's also very difficult to play against Floowandereeze in general, but in this kind of matchup, I mean, being Andre, I think we also saw this at Italian Nationals, playing Vanquish, your opponent don't really know how to play against it, so I think this is one of the key factors of the deck itself. On the other hand, it's true that Floowandereeze has been very popular this weekend, so it's no surprise that Federico's sitting with this record at the moment.
It's impressive that we have 7 cards in hand, despite the field being completely taken apart here.
Exactly. We mentioned how the Vanquish Soul deck is really good at grinding, and you can see it here.
Alright, now it can be quite normal summon reliant, which is why this Fenrir works out quite decently.
Obviously, you have to play around Ampen, so you need to put everything you special summon in defense in order to use it. and this pretty much takes Link out of the equation.
It's really hard as well to deal with this setup of a negate, the Book of Moon style effect of the Dreaming Town. And of course, don't forget, map is online as well, so Andre probably doesn't want to commit a normal summon too soon here until we can try and find some way to deal with that. And Vanquish, so kind of a normal summon reliant deck, really does need that initial summon to be able to establish the rock.
Yeah, also, sometimes you might run out of tributes, and this is why Federico is also using 3 copies of Empen, which is really a first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, checking the grave here before the Ryzen has been normal summoned to double down on that normal summon multiple times because of the magnificent map. All right. Not going for the Eglin resummon here.
I think it'll be interesting to see where Federico wants to wait to activate the Apex Avian, because now he gets the Voyager with the Raisin, so I think he has at least 3 different attributes in hand once again.
Yeah, he has plenty, but now it will use the Raisin to destroy the Empen in the same column.
So revealing the bonus effect of Raisin to show up 2 monsters instead of the 1 for the search, and that will eliminate 1 of these Empens, still to try and circumvent the rest of this field that we have to deal with.
Yeah, also as the Borger and Caesar can bounce this Vanquish show back to the end, it's really tough to use cards like Impermanence or Veiler to get around these kind of effects, because they are not gonna resolve, but the Apex is different. It can definitely be used by Federico whenever he feels like it.
Tagging here by revealing to return and special summon from the hand. And again, everything does have to be put into defense mode to deal with the continuous effect of the Empen. Generating an advantage by drawing here. Just so many cards in hand.
So many cards in hand, yeah.
Just curious, you know, if sometimes a deck like this can really feel like fake advantage, and that it doesn't really help you keep pushing. But he's doing a good job so far.
It's more a matter of when is Federico gonna use his Apex.
Yeah, still a lot in the tank here for Federico. He can Apex negate, as you mentioned. We still got that Dreaming Town set, and still yet to trigger the magnificent map here. And of course, at any point when he does perform a tribute summon, he can help clear using the unexplored winds.
Yeah, I think Federico is now considering whether to respond to this. Yeah, it all depends on where he wants to activate, either the Apex or the map. Yeah, I think it does. Makes sense. Yeah.
Goes for the Apex, trying to destroy the Caesar, negating its summon, and that resolves.
Do you think there's a world where you, like, on resolution Dreaming Town just to re-establish the Avion, as it's not once per turn, or?
Possibly, and now, unfortunately though, there is Fenrir, which can be used from Andre. Yeah. Wow, this actually resolved, and it's looking better than just a moment ago, which makes me wonder whether that's a Dreaming Town, right? Are we sure it's a Dreaming Town? Because, like,
yeah, he definitely starts a Dreaming Town.
I mean, I would have thought he would have maybe used it earlier, but maybe he's afraid of committing too much to the field at the moment.
Seems like he's trying to just let his opponent overcommit as much as possible so that we can get a massive Book of Moon style effect here. We also playing Mega Ryza?
Yeah,
I think
we are. Yeah, he's playing the full package as mentioned. 3 Empen, 1 Apex, and 1 Mega Ryza. And now he goes for this Dreaming Town into the Eglin, which will allow him, although he lost unfortunately the unexplored winds, he can still use the Book of Eclipse-like effect, banishing the trap card from the graveyard to put everything on the field face down from the side of Andre.
For a deck like the Floowandereeze, it does seem to do a lot of disruption here. Unfortunately, we have to sacrifice our own Empen for Empen here just to trigger the effects of the Dreaming Town, as you need to have a tribute summon to be able to get the full Book of Eclipse there.
And this does resolve, which really limit what Andre can do to continue this play, but I see what looks like a planet and maybe a Stake Your Soul. Let's see.
This is definitely why Federico, I suppose, is known among the Italians as the Penguin, as he's established the third one this game.
And absolutely, we do see the planet just gonna get the third copy of Fenrir, not really useful at the moment. And let's see if he has the stick here, so to at least try and push a little more. No,
he doesn't.
Just face down, and play is back to Federico, who managed to stop this aggressive turn, and has now once again the possibility, as mentioned, with another copy of the Unexplored Wind. A regular Floowandereeze deck would be out of both Unexplored Wind and Empen, as usually you only play 2 Empen and 1 Unexplored, while Federico is already on the second copy of Unexplored Winds and the third of Empen. And yeah, this is working out greatly. He will now be able to search his last tribute in the deck, which is the Mega Ryza, and potentially will be able to go for game, because when Ryza tributes a win, he basically can bounce 2 different things from the field. 1 to the end, 1 to the top, and yeah, this should be enough game for game, potentially.
Yeah, a lot to clear here still, but so many tools available to your deck with the Unexplored Winds and the Mega Ryza, as you mentioned, so this is looking pretty promising for him. And, you know, in terms of deck building, I think it's really cool how he's built this together, because it's, you know, you typically see things like, for example, Dimension Shifter, which he's not even playing. He's opted to go for more engine.
Yeah, the deck seems super consistent, honestly, and I really like the fact that basically you can grind a lot. And also the third Empen is, I think, a brave move in that sense. But
it's worked out really well. You know, he's gone through all 3, as he said.
He's really playing it, as mentioned, as a more of a grind, completely engine-focused deck with even more ways to search his Floowandereeze with one of the unusual spell cards, that is the Jack in the Hand, which he's playing 2 copies of.
Yeah, I think I've seen that more sort of show up in like OCG because of the limitations that allows you to get that level 1 search. But, you know, like we said, he's just going for as many Floowander cards as possible, you know, not really going for a ton of non-engine. You know, we do see the triple Book of Eclipse and Ruler, but other than that, it is just full.
Yeah, and he picks up his cards. So Andre, although starting really well with his Vanquish Soul combos, just gotta give up to Federico. Great game 1, great show of both of these guys' decks. Both very grindy, as mentioned. Andre went first, did what he was supposed to do, set up the burger, set up the Caesar, ended up with like 6 cars in hand, and still, unfortunately, lost to what was an incredible opening from Federico, going through 3 copies of Empen. So, yeah.
I think there's a lot for him to take out in this matchup, because he's definitely built it quite heavily in favor of something like Kashtira, from what I can tell, looking at this. And you know, something like Ghost Bell isn't really going to do much in this kind of matchup, right? So.
Yeah, but he has stuff for Floowandereeze. I think there's for sure that there can be only one, which is very powerful, and then there's the Eradicator Virus, which, you know...
No, I think his side deck is really good against this matchup.
So there's a lot of stuff, also the Cosmic Cyclone, if it really feels like, so... there are a lot of different options you can go for, either going first or second. I think his side deck is very solid.
And obviously the there can be is amazing in the deck, as they are all different, but when it comes to Floowandereeze, they're all Winch Beast, which makes the card amazing for this one matchup. On the other hand, Federico also has a few tools in the side deck. What do you think he might bring in for this one specifically?
How good is Shifter versus Vanquish Soul?
I'm not a big fan of the card. Like they can actually even side themselves. It's okay because it turned obviously the Link one into a much weaker card, but overall I wouldn't side it. I would probably just side the Cosmics because you would expect some form of back row, and obviously you know that the deck might even main that there can be. Outside of that, to be fair, I'm not even sure if he wants to side any more Antrops, like even Ash. Ash is obviously fine, but I'm not sure if you want to play that 1-for-1 game, you know, against a deck that, as we saw, can end up on 7 cards. You want something that's more impactful, so maybe we might see 3 copies of RP Feather Storm even going second, which wouldn't surprise me. But regardless, I think our duelists are pretty much done with their side decks, so let's jump back into game 2.
think Federico really came into this matchup with a bit of a deck building advantage over Andre, and despite losing the dice roll, actually managing to pull that apart quite convincingly. So, you know, masterful play as well as deck building. You can't really ask for more. So great display from Federico, and we'll see if he's able to do the same here going second. I think those you know, field breakers actually worked out quite nicely for him with the eclipses and rulers.
Yeah, but I think his deck list is very honestly very unique, very powerful.
I like it.
Yeah.
And at the same time now, the side decks, as mentioned, are looking pretty good for Andre too. Starting things off once again with this Fenrir. The question is, does he have access to the Raisin this time?
Similar turn as before, and Auto Prosperity is going to help with that. Extra deck not super important in a deck like Vanquish Soul. You know, as long as you keep your 3 rocks, then it's always fine. I'm curious what you think about the deck choice of bringing something like Floowandereeze, because it's not exactly rogue or unknown. I think most people probably know what it is and how it plays, and it's not really a deck that typically has a particularly high ceiling, right?
No, but at the same time, as you mentioned, this is a format in which you expect a lot of different decks. So chances are your opponents cannot afford to side that much or anything specific for the Floowandereeze deck, which means you might capitalize on it. And it has a really good Kashtira matchup because of a very unique interaction that is when you try to banish face down a Floowandereeze face up monster, it will not be banished face down, it will be banished face up because of its own effect, which pretty much makes those cards like Fenrir and Arisart much less effective.
Yeah, the banish strategy of Floowandereeze synergizing so well with things like Shifter, not really caring about the Kashtira matchup, so it works out quite nicely into the meta here.
Yeah, picks up the reinforcement of the army, always Grave Way, the OG searcher, and here we can see pretty much the usual setup with just the 1 Raisin. What you can do is end on a burger, which is very similar to Eat Soul for, you know, the cyber stacks. What it does is it draws you a card during both player's turn, and that's obviously great.
That is definitely a discount value brand Heat Soul, I will say that.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Madlove picking up the spell there and setting and pass it on over.
Oh wow, actually holding on the burger here, which he probably didn't really have access to then. This is not looking too threatening. What though can go on is... Ooh, there is a Droll.
And Ash as
well. Droll is so strong against the Floowandereeze deck. By far the best entrap you can have against it.
I'm really curious on the sequencing here. If your opponent, you know, in this exact situation, post-siding goes first with 6 cards and Prosperities, do you Ash or do you wait to Droll them?
That's a good question, honestly. And indeed, you can tell that Andre is thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because it's a risk.
I think you can allow it. Like, Droll is too strong. Literally, like, most of the cards, obviously, like Robina and Eglin, are gonna be completely useless against it, so...
Yeah, so suggesting there that you want to just get that Droll effect online ASAP.
Because the thing is, you know you have a really good setup, so...
It just sometimes feels like really risky post-siding because of how deep Prosperity digs, and you can see like really strong blowout cards is what I would maybe be scared of.
I agree, but at the same time, you can activate the Droll now when Prosperity resolves, so it's not like you really fear anything, and you can keep the Ash for next turn potentially. So yeah, this is gonna be devastating for Federico, who actually has a way to keep playing, which is chaining the Advent right here.
So we chains it in response to the Droll and Lockbird, so we can get 1 more add.
And now we get to see the Ash. So
worked out quite nicely, actually.
A +1 Ash it is. So Federico might be in a really tough spot here, and just gonna set 3 face down spell and traps and add back over to Andre, who might be in for a quick game 2 here with a very dominating start.
Yeah, this advantage generation by the Link Monster is exactly why Vanquish Soul can be quite a formidable deck here. Backed up, of course, by so many powerful different hand traps, and of course, Droll and Lockbird completely shutting down the Floowandereeze strategy. As we continue on with a normal summon Raisin here. I don't know how much relevant back row we can really set in Floowander, but
Yeah,
Maybe a couple of eclipses if
yeah,
he's holding
potentially.
into them.
just to stay alive.
Yeah.
And then again, that's like a really poor situation because then your opponent gets to draw so many cards in the
Yeah.
end phase. So we'll see how he can maneuver out of this one. Don't forget as well that Andre does have a set card. I think that was the search
I think the quick
already, but
spell.
tagging out here via Dr. Madlove. And we're about to put as much damage on the field as possible before trying to get that all-important game shot as the Link Monster also activates to special summon. And once the cogs start spinning on a deck like Vanquish Soul, it's really hard to come back from, I think, once they've sort of got going. Yeah, I think Andre is pretty well versed in this deck, and it's really interesting to see just how Floowander completely tore apart that field game one. And I think this is really like the problem that we see quite often with a deck like Floowander, and I just think it's the consistency sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's the consistency. On the other hand, as we mentioned, I mean, Droll and Lockbird is, is huge, honestly, against the deck. And I think it's one of the main reasons why Federico's also playing, just so more consistency in Jack in the hand, so to have, to spare this duality, terraforming all these cards.
Yeah. And here, actually, what we might see is the second effect, or the secret effect, as sometimes we call it, from the Burger. Not only does he draw cards, but he can deal 1500 life points damage. And during both players' turns, that means 3k, and that might be enough to just close the game, which is exactly the case here.
We've mentioned it a few times throughout the commentary this weekend, but having tools for time is extremely important, and an in-engine way to access burn damage is extremely powerful in a situation like this.
But here, actually, Federico, with the sneaky play with the Dreaming Town, might actually pull a trick on his opponent, because he really didn't see this coming, and now with the Ampen getting added to the end, he can resolve and summon this tree back. And as mentioned, if the Fenrir is to activate to try and banish one of them, it will still go face up. Let's see. 4 cards in hand from Andre. Yeah. He will use it. As you can see here, it will get banished face up. Is there another monster from Federico? Probably not. And that means this turn might be over if that's the case.
Just aided so well by the Fenrir, and I think so many decks have found a really comfortable spot in so many different archetypes just to run Fenrir.
Yeah, and we saw that at the beginning with Sprite, for example, just have a couple of Fenrirs in your main deck, putting some pressure to your opponent. And I think they're working out very well here in Vanquish, or something that we don't see quite often.
Neat little interaction as the pointing downwards of the Vanquish Soul Link Monster synergizes very nicely with the Nightmare Phoenix. Not often you see a co-length Nightmare Phoenix being able to resolve, but yeah, we do get another bonus draw here, as well as destroying the card that our opponent controls.
And unfortunately, with just exactly 1000 life points left, Federico cannot chain his Cosmic Cyclone. Now the Burger is threatening to just close this one out by revealing Shu. And I think, Federico has seen enough. We are going to game 3. Not much to say, honestly. Andre really played well, set up his field, and compared to game 1, what you mentioned, a lot of these changes from the main deck cards that maybe weren't that great in this matchup were substituted with cards from his side deck, and Droll and Lock is probably the card that won him this game alone, shutting down everything from Federico. And now it's 1-1, so back to what we started. Federico actually, for the first time in this match, is gonna go first. So we'll see if that pays any advantage to him.
Yeah, I think it's quite poetic that the hand trap that typically Floowander likes to drop Shifter, and that it ends games now, getting a little bit of taste of his own medicine by receiving a Droll and Lockbird. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how game 3 plays out. We haven't seen Federico go first yet.
Yeah.
And I assume he's probably going to do quite a similar standard setup that you normally go for in Floowander, but You know, the way he's played this out, his disruption is so well. And most important of all, has he drawn a Feather Storm, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. So
Exactly.
we'll have 3 copies, so hopefully for him, we'll get to see at least one of them to help him out. And
I would say the #1 priority was the concern you had for him in the previous game, consistency. And what you can see from Federico deck list is that he focused on consistency with, as mentioned, Jack in the Fruit, and a lot of these cards with 3 copies of Ampen, 3 copies of the Unexplored Winds. That is the #1, so hopefully he will not break, and once he has established his field, he can try and dig with his pot cards to get that 3 copies of RP Featherstorm, which is, regardless, one of the best cards in the game, arguably the best trap card in the game, of one of the best trap cards. And on the other end, obviously, we are gonna see, regardless, a grind game strategy from his opponent, trying to stay in this, drawing his Droll and Lock, Ash, Impermanence, and all of his Entraps to stop Federico in his tracks. As our duelists are finishing up, let's find out who the winner of Game 3 will be.
Talked a lot about consistency and how important it is to make sure that your deck is able to, you know, actually achieve its win condition, not just sitting staring at the 5 cards in your hand like, what do I do? But it's really good in a tournament like this, and that's kind of what Federico's identified, because you have such a long, big tournament. You know, it's not exactly a regional or a local level event. You're really trying to make sure that you have that variance diluted as much as possible by giving your deck the most optimal chance to go first.
I saw a Droll from his opponent. It's there once again.
Yep. Well, no way to really stop that in Federico's deck. No called by or you know, something to handle that, but...
Okay, the map
Map
is...
can kind of help you play a little bit around Droll, right?
Yes, a little bit. It really depends on what you paired it with. But with the Egglen being the case, it's gonna be so tough to fight back. Let's see. At the same time, yeah, you do have an option to at least set up.
Yeah, most important of all is if you are going to get Drolled here, at least you have the comfort of map, because then when your opponent inevitably normal summons, and he will very likely normal summon in Vanquish Soul, and you can sort of play your turn 1 on turn 2 sort of thing. But yeah, the setup is going to be significantly weaker here, as he doesn't get that all-important Dreaming Town.
Especially getting the Ampen, because you cannot really use it right here. And yeah, we're going to see the Droll once again here, and this hurts so much. We could see a normal summon regardless of the Ampen, which I think makes sense.
Just to establish the... Oh, hard drawing
nice. Nice one, yeah. I was about to say, you could totally go for the Ampen to just set up.
Yeah, I mean, just even if you don't get the Dreaming Town, you know, the lockdown effect is quite good. But, I mean, that's the thing, though. Vanquish Soul, is, as Andre's proven, it doesn't really care too much, because you have so many guys you can just put in defense mode. So it does help to play around that, but a setup of map plus Avion is probably as good as you can hope to have with...
Under Droll for sure. Yeah. We might even have a trap card, but no, he just passes back.
Oh, that's really rough. He's got Cosmic for the map.
Yeah, and he's got Stake.
Do you think you protect it?
Oof, this end is amazing. No, you probably don't protect it. But I saw the end and it's looking fantastic with Cosmic, Fenrir, and Stake Your Soul. This is a phenomenal opening by Andre.
Yeah, I mean, this by itself, this Fenrir alone allows you to, you know, contest the Avion just by itself.
Yeah.
Do you think it's better to just Avion negate this, because they're going to go to the battle?
Well.
Yeah,
you might as well.
But I suppose maybe Federico's thinking like, okay, well, let him commit to his battle phase, perhaps.
Maybe, but I think I would have liked it there, especially because unless they have another copy. They get a normal summon. Obviously, you don't know about the Cosmic.
It's such a tough situation, because it's like, do you want to protect? Because the only way you have to play on this turn is the map. But at the same time, your only real line of defense is Avion, and blowing it on a Cosmic feels bad. And yeah, it looks like Federico chooses to allow it. And
you really cannot afford it.
I think it's a bad situation regardless of what you do, right? It always just feels like lose-lose.
Okay, we see the Mad Love normal summoning and activating the effect.
Hit the normal summon negate, pray sometimes, I guess, can be
Yeah, at the same
play?
time, I guess it's decent, but yeah, you're forced to negate it. I was about to say, because if they don't negate it, you get the Dust Devil, they put the Apex face down, and then yeah. Unfortunately for Federico, the Stake Your Soul is there as well, gaining the Raizen, and this is a brutal setup that can easily go into game if it puts up enough damage from the Vanquish player, as you can see here.
Fantastic hand from Andre.
Yeah, it's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Could see a little draw phase Borgor potentially to finish this off as well.
This is a lot of damage with the Farrier, 4200, and then you can access the Borger, which is amazing. So, let's see.
I do kind of like the way that Federico, you know, sort of allowed the Fenrir to resolve, just, you know, probably trying to taunt him into using his battle phase so we can at least survive, but he still managed to find a way regardless, and yeah, there's a lot of damage here.
This is a lot. 64, yeah. 6400, so 16
Does
left.
this deck ever end on Rise Heart?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh,
No.
we're tagging out.
Yeah, this is exactly leaving 100 life points to Federico, and in the draw phase you use it again. So unless Federico top decks like an Impermanence or something like that, let's see if he has anything.
That's
wow. Wow.
Burn damage, Borgor, MVP, working it out quite well here. Wow.
What an ending to this match, to this round 5. Both duelists really played well throughout the entire match. Game 1 was the back and forth one, we could say, with Andre going first and just setting up an incredible field, 6 cards in his hand. But Federico, going through 3 Ampens, was able to fight back and win it. But it seems like that once they sided, really the momentum switched in the Vanquish Soul players' favor.
Double Droll, right? Double Droll.
Double Droll, honestly, was incredible. Also, the Cosmic Cyclone on the field spell in Game 3 was amazing. Like in Game 2, I think there was not that much that Federico could have done. I mean,
to be honest, it's worth mentioning that Droll was not even one of the side deck cards.
Yeah.
He's maining 3 copies of the card, and sometimes
And again,
he
it's
gets
because of
rewarded.
the attribute, right? I think. Is wind relevant at all?
Not really,
no?
to be fair. It's actually a choice.
Just a good meta choice.
Yeah, it's actually just a meta call. Worked out for him. I gotta say the card is it feels like in a weird spot, I guess. Against some of the decks it's amazing. Against some of them, like Labyrinth for example, thinking of Dinka, it's completely useless, but you can take these kind of risks when you want to make it all the way to the finals or all the way to the World Championship. And Andre moves on with a 5-0 record with his Vanquish Soul deck for what was pretty much the middle of the day 1. This was round 5, but we have 4 more rounds remaining. When it comes to Federico, 4-1 is a totally reasonable score. He can still advance to day 2 and then compete for a stop in the top 64. So I'm sure they will give out their best, but obviously you gotta give credit to Andre.
How do you think the Vanquish Soul deck performed? Has it convinced you?
no, honestly, the deck convinces me as well. Also, at the National Championship, we were impressed by the deck, especially because like it was released 2 days before the event, and basically people don't really know how to interact with the deck. And still, I think that now, I mean, the deck is incredibly impressive. What I really like about the deck is that, as you mentioned, you can fit also very small engines like the Kashtira, as Andre did. But what the deck, I mean, surprised me the most is that you can play a lot of entraps. So basically, just with a couple of cards, you can able to set up your field. And I mean, the Vanquish monsters themselves are amazing. Also, the Link monster plays a huge role. So I'm definitely impressed by Andre's performance, and honestly, also being down 1-0 in the future match and then coming back. Impressive stuff from him.
And we could say it also has the reading advantage of maybe not all of your opponents being super familiar with it, which might lead to some misplays, especially as mentioned when you want to use cards like Impermanence and Veiler. They can really dodge those easily, and you know, you can see why it's always nice to have a deck that nobody is too familiar with, and that is paying off for Andre, especially with a side deck that I really like. I'm a fan of these 5 free offs in the side decks instead of clean side deck. Just 5 cards that you like, what you feel like the best ones. It's working out for him, and hopefully we will see more of both of these duelists later on in day 2. Thank you guys for being with us. This is almost the end of round 5, because before leaving on a short break, we need to hear it from the winner, Andre, and who is better at the job than Ed?